So first of all, David McNulty, Chief Executive of Surrey County Council, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
A few questions just to get a sense of how you're using the organisationally, how you're using the coach training that PB Coaching are providing. But first of all, how did you get into coaching?
I've always been a bit of a sceptic about coaching, and it was interesting because having been a confirmed sceptic for quite a long time, I then came across some work that PB Coaching were doing in the Northwest a few years ago, and I was impressed with it. And when I came to Surrey and I saw the scale of culture change that we needed, I felt that PB Coaching, or coaching more generally, had a real role to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that sense, we know we've got a huge amount to do here, and coaching is an important part of what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. And how are you using coaching within the organisation?
Well, I think currently we've had the sort of 80 managers from the senior parts of the organisation have gone through it, starting with the corporate leadership team itself, and myself and my directors, and they're going through in relatively small groups to get the intensity of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing that as a way for them to both develop their own coaching skills and to develop the conversations around performance that they have with staff members and others in their day-to-day work as leaders and managers in the organisation. And over time we hope that's going to be, or the whole organisation will be familiar with coaching as an approach. So I'm hoping that by next April we'll have had 200 people
Mm-hmm.
from the senior positions in the organisation going through it.
And how do you see that making an impact upon the culture of Surrey County Council, and in particular a resulting benefit to residents?
I think it's quite interesting. I don't think, when I arrived, I don't think Surrey had been particularly good at performance management for a while. And interestingly, when we tried to introduce performance management that was more rigorous, some people perceived that as being a form of bullying. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that I think coaching is helping us to do is to really focus on how you can have an impactful conversation to raise individual and team performance. So it's around giving people the skills and confidence and self-awareness about the impact they have on
Mm-hmm.
others, and therefore how you have those difficult conversations that if you don't have them, you just don't get the performance improvements.
Mm-hmm. And the impact on residents then?
I think that the benefit to residents is simply around our services and the teams that deliver
Mm-hmm.
services or commission services, just improving the quality of how they organise themselves to do the work that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are working really hard with people to keep that line of sight, that at the end of any work you do, there ought to be a clear benefit to the residents that we're here to serve.
Mm-hmm. And what I'm noticing on the course is that people feel more energised or more optimistic about the role they have to do.
Yeah, I think it's really noticeable. I can see the impact that the coaching has had on the 6 or 7 people who I work with most closely each day. But I see that wider impact across the organisation, and people coming to me and volunteering how much of an impact it's having on them. And one of the things I think is that people feel that we're making a real investment
Mm-hmm.
in them as individuals and in the quality of their performance.
Yes.
And they're responding to that investment. We all know there's a huge amount of really tough work to do, and people need to know that you're giving them the support and the capacity and the capability
Mm-hmm.
to tackle these challenges. And I think people feel that the coaching is that real investment
Mm-hmm.
in their ability to tackle the toughest challenges that we've got.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that's all the more of an issue in these more straitened times when there are budget cuts and people are having to do more with less.
Yeah, and I think the reality is that you have to make the case that there's real performance improvement.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make the case that there's real resident benefit, because without being brutal, you wouldn't do it just to make people
Mm-hmm.
feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is they feel better because they're performing better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the improved performance that's the key to this. And when people's performance improves, they do feel more energised, they do feel more enthusiastic about what they're doing, and they do feel that they can tackle bigger challenges. And as you know, we've all got bigger challenges to tackle.
What we notice on this programme, maybe more than any that we've run traditionally, is that it doesn't feel as if this is a PB coaching programme. It feels as if this is your programme, Surrey County Council's programme, and we're playing our part in it, but so too are you. You come along to the workshops, and or one of your colleagues, and speak about the programme at the beginning, and I guess set the tone. And likewise, the HR and OD folks are also, in a sense, embedding this programme into how the organisation is beginning to work differently going forward.
Yeah, and we didn't want anything that felt like it was off the peg. We wanted something that felt like it recognised where we were and who we were, and it was then responsive to that. And I think we've consciously tried to shape and influence the programme whilst keeping the core elements. But you know, it's I think I've been encouraged by the way in which the programme has developed as we've gone along, and it feels different and better than when we started, and it was having an impact then. I think its impact is increasing. Yes,
I have to say we take a very deliberate learning approach to it, that people are always coming up with new ideas as to how the course can evolve, and we're trying to introduce those as we go.
Yes. I think that's noticeable, and I think the other thing that I've noticed is that through the 5-day programme, people establish a set of relationships, because even though they're in the same organisation, and many large and complex organisations face this, people can still be stuck in their own individual silos.
Yes.
And one of the big benefits is that people have established relationships across the organisation, and they sustain those subsequently, and people develop their informal support groups, they develop their shared learning, they've got action learning sets that we've tried to get them going 2 or 3 times, but for the first time it feels like they're really catching and fixing and moving forward as groups.
Yes. And tell me candidly, how are you finding working with PB coaching?
I think 2 things. One is I like the people I've met so far, and that can sound as though does it matter, but it's actually, even if people are really good, you still have to like them to want to put this level of effort into working with them. So I think we've found the people who've come have been very skilled, clearly on top of their game, very responsive to us as a group of people, and I think it's gone well. Yeah.
Great.
But it ought to, because we were paying for it. Sorry, I've just put that as a joke at the end of it. So sorry.
And last question.
Okay.
The tough one on return on investment. How can you put your hand on heart and say that you do have return on investment from this programme?
Well, our performance as an organisation is improving in all sorts of ways. I mean, we're unrecognisable from the organisation that I joined in July 2009. I think we're now a very high-performing organisation. We've got high-performing teams across the spectrum of what we do, and it's not only the coaching that's done that, but clearly, you know, people's own perception is that the coaching has made a big difference to their ability to improve performance.
Yes.
And if we couldn't demonstrate that, so if we couldn't demonstrate the improved performance, I wouldn't be able to go out to residents and say this was part of what enabled us to improve our performance. And you know, I can hand on heart, and I do. I'll meet 2 or 3 groups of residents a week, and I'm quite open about the fact that we are investing money in our staff development, because actually that's going to lead to better services for residents.
Yes.
And that's why we do it in the end.
Yes. Great. David McNulty, thank you very much.
Pleasure, Vincent. Okay.